Hey guys, what's up? I'm Noah, this is Analog Resurgence, and today I'm taking a look at Ilford's Ortho Plus black and white negative film. I've been on a bit of an Ilford kick lately. I recently took a look at HP5, which is a 400 ISO black and white negative film that they make. But today, I'm taking a look at something that is a little bit different from most black and white films that are available out there today, and that is Ilford's Ortho Plus. Ortho Plus is an 80 ISO black and white negative film. An 80 ISO is a much lower light sensitivity than something like 400 ISO that you get with HP5. So lower ISO films can definitely be more limiting to work with, but they can also be very worth it. They usually give you things like much lower grain in comparison to higher ISO things like 200, 400, and definitely 800. And Ortho Plus is available in both 35mm, 120 medium format, as well as large format sheet film. Ortho Plus is so named because it's an orthochromatic film. And when we're talking about black and white film, there is orthochromatic, panchromatic, and orthopanchromatic. Those all refer to the film's sensitivity to the light spectrum, because black and white film is still sensitive to color, even though it's not in color. Orthochromatic film is film that lacks sensitivity to the red light spectrum. This means that you can handle it under a red safe light, and it will render red areas of your image as darker than areas with greens or blues. And that's what Ortho Plus is, and a lot of early black and white films were also orthochromatic as well. Panchromatic film is black and white that is sensitive to a very wide range of the color spectrum. So it has blue, green, and red sensitivity, meaning that the contrast is less harsh, and it will render a wider variety of tones in the image. Most black and white film currently is panchromatic film with things like Tri-X, T-Max, HP5, FP4, all of that stuff is panchromatic film, which means that you have a wide sensitivity to the color spectrum. And orthopanchromatic film is like right in the middle ground between the two. It doesn't fully lack the red sensitivity of a true orthochromatic film, but the sensitivity is less than that of a full panchromatic film. So something like Fuji's black and white Acros film is being marketed as an orthopanchromatic film. But enough with like the history and technical lesson. Let's take a look at some actual shots off of some rolls of 35 and 120 versions of Ilford Ortho Plus. All this stuff was developed myself just in some Kodak HC110 developer. It's a pretty common kind of general use developer. I also scanned all this stuff just on an Epson V700 flatbed scanner. And if you're dying to see all the shots that I put up in these videos off the rolls for everything that I show off in the roll reviews, then there is a link in the description to the Analog Resurgence Patreon. You can head over there and check that out. You can support the channel, which just helps me to do more and more of this stuff in the future, which means more roll reviews, bigger topics with Stranger Things, and just different cameras. Ortho Plus gives a nice, sharp contrast that is a result of its limited sensitivity to the color spectrum. The reds in your images are going to be rendered black or very dark, whereas the blue and green portions of your shots will be the lighter areas. This means things like green trees and blue skies are going to be much, much lighter in comparison to any like reds or orange in that end of the spectrum in your images, which will be much darker. The look of orthochromatic film is usually really associated a lot with early cinema film, because film used during that time didn't have a wide range of sensitivity to them. This gives us these like sudden dark areas and like a higher contrast than we're used to now when shooting panchromatic films, like the FP4 I recently looked at. Quite a few of my shots with this stuff came out with like a bit of a glowing quality in the brighter areas, which is what's to be expected. The sky in these shots has a great bright look to it that can bleed into the rest of the image. You can really see this in the highlights in general as being like pretty overpowering when shooting with this stuff. So definitely keep that in mind when you're going out and taking pictures. Of course, it is really best to compose shots with color in mind, even though this is black and white film. Considering the range of colors in your scene will help you to understand how the contrast and the look of your shots will come out when shooting an orthochromatic film. These chairs, for example, give us an idea of the limited red sensitivity here. The two in the middle are red, while the two on the outside are blue. The red ones are really, really dark, whereas the blue ones come out much, much lighter. Keeping that characteristic in mind means that you can really play to the strengths of this film. When we compare this to just a basic panchromatic film, side by side like HP5, you can see what I'm talking about. The change in contrast with the Ortho Plus stuff is really apparent when you put it beside just a panchromatic film. HP5 has a much more gradual contrast and a wider range of color that will render into our black and white shots. Ortho Plus can be a great looking film, but it's one that should be given a little bit of extra thought to when shooting. 80 ISO also means it's more limited for shooting in certain conditions because it needs good light. In general, I did find that the 35mm stuff still had like a noticeable amount of grain on it, but that is reduced when you look at it in medium format just because of the size of this stuff. Looking at Ortho Plus in 120 shot in 6x9 on my Mamiya Universal, I really love the way that trees look in these shots. They have a smooth, really fluffy texture and look to them that goes really well with the bright glowing look of the sky behind them. Ortho Plus is something that can be used to evoke the feel of a much older era of black and white photography when orthochromatic films were much more common. The 2019 film The Lighthouse sought to achieve this orthochromatic look as well, but was forced to do so using Kodak XX panchromatic film with filters because no one's making orthochromatic cinema film right now as far as I'm aware. So if that really kind of classic black and white look appeals to you and you're interested in achieving it using less editing and even less filters sometimes, then you can actually just shoot an orthochromatic film and it will lead you in the right direction in terms of those characteristics. There's also not a ton of other like widely available orthochromatic film stocks available out there right now. Ilford putting out Ortho Plus is really one of the most popular and easy to get your hands on options, as well as it having an 80 ISO, because some of this other stuff that you can get that is orthochromatic, such as stuff that you can find through the Film Photography Project, which I will put a link to in the description as well, is usually stuff that has a much lower ISO. Stuff like their Super Positive film, which is an orthochromatic film I looked at before on the channel with an incredibly low ISO, or things like Kodak's expired Kodalith film. So Ortho Plus is maybe not like the best choice for like an all-around kind of general shooting option for black and white stuff, but it is a great and really easily available option if you're looking to shoot orthochromatic film. Understanding the characteristics of it and playing to the strengths of that film might turn it into one of those film stocks that you get really interesting results with. Thank you guys so much for watching and checking this out. If people have been shooting Ilford Ortho Plus, then of course let me know in the description down below. This stuff has only been around in its current iteration from Ilford over the last couple of years as well. I will throw links in the description for places to buy Ortho Plus as well, the Film Photography Project for all that stuff, Pro 8mm out in California if you're looking for Super 8 and 16mm and like motion picture services and film stocks and stuff like that. Again, the Patreon is in the link if you want to see more of this stuff and just support the channel because you like the channel and you have the ability to support the channel. That is great. That information can be found in the description along with the P.O. box if you want to send film along for the channel and the roll reviews and stuff like that. So let me know what you think and I'll see you guys soon.